I'm joined now by Celeste Reset, who's leading the Vote No campaign. Celeste, you've been involved in the Wichita community for a long time, very instrumental in the push to save Century 2. You've run for office as well. You've been described as a local government watchdog, so it's no surprise you've taken a big interest in this issue.
Absolutely. What really strikes me the most is that in all the years I've been talking about trust and transparency in our city government, this is like completely the opposite. There's no blueprints, there's no site plans, there's no detail. So I feel like sometimes I speak to city council, but I'm not sure they hear what's being said.
Sure. Well, and that's been your biggest criticism and a criticism of a lot of people in the community is that this plan was too rushed, right?
Right.
It sounds like you wouldn't be necessarily opposed to some sort of sales tax to raise money for the city.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious what you think would actually get more people on board to vote for something like
Sure.
this.
So absolutely the best way to get people on board for some of these, which are good ideas like homeless and affordable housing, is first, let's break it out into 5 distinct buckets. Let's vet each one and come up with plans for each one and take them through the normal budget process. Don't put it all in one bucket.
Sure.
It's too big, too rushed, too vague, but give us the detail and break them out in 5. And let's also do more cooperative work with Sedgwick County, because after all, they also have a fire department. Perhaps we can consolidate there. And they also have the One Rise campus, which is going to have 110 beds. It's going to have job training. It's going to have substance addiction counseling. Why are we trying to recreate the wheel right here in downtown Wichita with the MAC, the Second Light? Why don't we work together and perhaps not overlap with our offerings?
Sure. We'll get to the MAC in a minute. I want to go back to Century 2. That's
Sure.
one of those 5 initiatives. From a 1,000-foot view, it would be easy for someone to say, well, you've led the charge to save Century 2 for such a long time. That's included in the sales tax, renovation of the building, so you should be behind the plan, but you're not.
No, and here's why I'm not behind the plan, is I was able to talk to both Aaron Bastian and Ben Hutton a little bit early in the game, and they couldn't answer my questions.
Okay.
They couldn't answer what was going to happen to Century 2. Were we going to put in a big ballroom? Were we going to leave it absolutely empty inside and create kind of like a donut, which is on the plans for Wichita Forward? There's 3 different plans. They couldn't answer these questions, so how could I possibly be behind their renovation when they don't even know what they're going to do inside the building?
Sure.
So that's when I had to pull back and say, you can't answer my questions. You don't know how you're going to fund this. I can't support something that's not been put into writing.
The conversation we were having off camera was just about the whole issue of trust, right? I said, you know,
Absolutely.
if you could trust the city, if you could trust Wichita Forward to raise the amount of money that needs to be raised and get it to where it needs to go, you wouldn't have such a problem with this initiative or with this proposal. But that's kind of the crux of the issue, right?
It is the crux of the issue, and I think there have been some really good investigative reporting done by your news station and also by the Eagle and other news journalists who say, look, trust has been an issue for the past 20 years. Look at Waterwalk, undeveloped. Look at the Wichita Water Plant, which is $20 million in cost overruns and still not working. Look at Kenmar Development, where we didn't even know $2 million was past due by the developers there. There are so many different trust issues with the city. They've got to do it right before we accept this.
Yeah. Well, and I want to get back to one of those other big issues is the MAC. You talked about the multi-agency center. That's been the place where the homeless shelter has been in the wintertime, and a lot of very important community outreach things going on there. The issue that the city has brought forward, and Wichita Forward continues to peg on this, is there is no funding for this come the last quarter of the year. And we'll give me just a second, we'll get there. With it being such a serious issue, if you guys get your way, they have warned that we're not going to have the money for this. So if we get to March 3rd and there's a vote no, you had mentioned to me, let's focus on the 5 buckets individually. It sounds like that would be something you'd say, okay, let's get right on the ball in working on the MAC and figuring out how to get money for this, right?
You're right. That would be one of the priorities. Of course, it's a social issue. It's a humanitarian issue. But there are better ways to go about it. I think one thing we have to look at is when, in 2014, when we started the MAC, Jeff Fleur of Greater Wichita Partnership promised that the downtown organizations would support support it with philanthropic efforts. So bring them back to the table to say, where is your philanthropic support? Then at the same time, I would think that taxpayers wouldn't be opposed if this was part of the budget for the operating expense going forward. After all, we're sitting on reserves of $90 million. We can afford to support the MAC, the Second Light, in our budget on an ongoing basis. I have no doubt.
Well, and then the city's going to come back and say we're facing a budget deficit. How do you respond to that?
We're always facing a budget deficit down the road, and that's always been something that even under previous administrations, the mayors have figured out with the city council where the money can come from. We've got a stabilization fund reserve that's 30 million. We've got a general fund reserve that's 50 million. We've got 10 million in the tourism fund that hasn't been spent. The money is there. It just needs to be budgeted, and it needs to be approved in the normal budget process. But really, we're not broke. The money is there.
Plenty to chew on there. What's your parting message to voters before they head to the polls?
So my parting message to voters is this is, again, we have to send City Council a message that says no, too big, too vague, too rushed. Let's break it out into 5 buckets and let's put it in the normal budget process, and let's vet the blueprints, the site plans, the overhead, the operating expenses. So let's start over again. It's not a done deal. It just needs to be done more wisely. Vote no March 3rd. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Celeste. Appreciate you joining us on
Yeah,
the show
thank you. I
this week. We're
appreciate
going
it.
to take one more break and come back with everything you need to know before you head to the polls as far as times, locations, and what you need to bring with you. Stay with us.